Good evening, everybody. It's Melissa Melton. I just want to talk to you guys for a minute about these articles that I've seen proliferating all over the mainstream media in the last week about a tick-borne illness that is causing people to be allergic to meat. This past week, a bunch of news stories have come out in the mainstream media about how the Lone Star tick is causing people to have essentially meat allergies. And this story on ABC starts out with, "There's a new weapon in the war on meat. A tiny tick whose bite might be spreading meat allergies up the East Coast. A bite from the Lone Star tick, so called for the white spot on its back, looks innocent enough, but University of Virginia researchers say saliva that sneaks into the tiny wound may trigger an allergic reaction to meat, agonizing enough to convert lifelong carnivores into wary vegetarians." So basically what happens is you get bit by this tick, then sometime later you eat meat, beef specifically, and then 3 to 6 hours after you ingest that, you can have a reaction anywhere from just mere hives to anaphylactic shock, and in some people they've described it as feeling for hours as if they're having a heart attack. And so if that doesn't make you want to be a vegetarian, I don't know what would. And even in this particular story, if you go down and look in the comments section, you have people in here talking about having been bit by a Lone Star tick, had this reaction, and now their doctors have put them on basically a fins and feathers diet. They can only eat fowl and fish. So effectively, they can't eat red meat anymore after going through this. Have you ever heard of Plum Island? Plum Island Animal Disease Center is a joint effort of the USDA and the Department of Homeland Security working together, and that's what it says on the website, to protect farm animals, farmers, ranchers, and the nation's farm economy and export markets, and your food supply. And it's great. There's an ellipses, ... and your food supply. That's just an afterthought, your food supply. Anyway, Plum Island is located off the northeastern tip of New York's Long Island. USDA activities at Plum Island are carried out by scientists and veterinarians with the department's Agricultural Research Service and Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service. Basically, this is a federal research facility that studies animal disease. This article on rinse.com is called Plum Island, Lyme Disease, and Operation Paperclip, a Deadly Triangle. And it basically goes down the historical documentation of Plum Island's history, proven ties to tick research dating back to the 1950s. Okay, so Operation Paperclip brought Nazi scientists to the United States. And one of those scientists, Dr. Eric Traub, was not only involved with research on Plum Island involving ticks, but he was also in charge of the Third Reich's virological and bacteriological warfare program during World War II. This guy was trained here in America in the 1930s, pre-World War II, at the Rockefeller Institute. Okay, fast forward a little bit to the 70s, when attorney John Loftus was hired by the Office of Special Investigations, which was a unit set up by the Justice Department to expose Nazi war crimes. And they gave him a top secret clearance, and they let him go through decades of secret documents. This guy came up with a lot of information having to do with Nazi germ warfare scientists who came to America and experimented with poison ticks that were dropped from planes to spread rare diseases. Then you've also got a huge trail of evidence that's linking this Eric Traub to working for the American Biological Warfare Program for several years, consulting with scientists at Fort Detrick, CIA operatives, that he did work for the USDA for a brief stint, and that he's been physically placed on Plum Island several times. Lyme disease is a bacteria that's transmitted to humans through the bite of an infected black-legged tick. And it comes with a super fun carnival ride of just random, horrible symptoms. And you'll never guess where Lyme disease first broke out. On the coast of Connecticut, a straight shot across the bay from Plum Island. That's where it started, and then it spread across most of the U.S. Multiple times, scientists and people who work with the Plum Island program have denied the Lyme disease claim, and that they supposedly claim that there is no scientific link that can prove that Lyme disease originated with Plum Island. And that's pretty much all they're going to say about it. They're not going to tell you anything else, even though there's a heap of evidence that would suggest something was going on there. And people continue to have issues with this place because, well, I mean, it's controlled by the DHS, USDA. The scientists that go there take special government ferries to get there that are guarded by armed officers. It's like Pink Floyd. It's like that line, "Mother, should I trust the government?" America was set up to not trust our government. We are supposed to inherently not trust them. I mean, we've got protections in place that are supposed to protect us from our government. But now it's to the point where you can't ask questions. And if you do, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. Even though all of the evidence, hard, rock-solid evidence, is pointing towards the government perpetrating these crimes against its own people. So in this article, Plumbing the Mysteries of Plum Island, on CBS, this guy Derlin Fish, who I guess is the Lyme expert at Yale University, and he says that we just need to stop making these kinds of connections because it just scares people. It should be noted, by the way, that Yale University, on record, works often with Plum Island on a multitude of projects that are very close proximity to each other. And he says, quote, "The facts are they were researching hundreds of thousands of hard and soft ticks, and at the same time an unknown bacteria found its way into the mouth of the Connecticut River in Old Lyme 10 miles away, where tens of thousands of birds fly." So birds don't fly on Plum Island because they put chemicals there that keep birds away, and it was 10 whole miles away, so we shouldn't make that connection. Why would we do that? I mean, with all this mountains of other intriguing evidence tying all this stuff together, but why would we make that connection? That's silly. Why would we do that? That's just scaring people, you guys. And the laughable thing about this is that the article here then goes on to talk about how Plum Island is in need of serious improvement, that the facility needs upgrading, there's no modern capabilities, it's very old, and there's concern about it being safe and functional. And the scientists there are basically having to make do. Does that make you feel safe? And if you read anything about Lyme's disease, it is very hard to get rid of. It has an antibiotic resistance. People who go to get treated for it have a hard time. They usually get a multitude of other tests. They have doctors telling them it's autoimmune disease or it's all in their heads, and they're given all kinds of tests and everything else. And then I came across this on Rense also, having to do with Lyme's disease, and it's called Living Next Door to Plum Island. It's a very interesting read. And I guess Marjorie Tutchin was looking into Lyme's disease and came across some information from a source of hers that stated that 60% of chronic Lyme patients are co-infected with several strains of mycoplasma, the most common one being, quote, Mycoplasma fermentans, which is actually patented by the U.S. Army and Army pathologist Dr. Lowe. Patent number 5,242,820, issued September 7th, 1993. Now, back to this rare meat allergy that people are getting from these Lone Star tick bites. Okay, so you see this in the mainstream media all the time, how beef and the cattle industry is the #1 enemy of the environmental movement. And if you do a quick search for cattle industry destroys planet on any search engine, you're going to find tons of articles about how, cow emissions are more harmful to the planet than car emissions when it comes to CO2, how eating red meat is not only bad for you, it's bad for the environment, how the beef industry is a huge contributor to the global warming crisis that we're all supposedly facing. And so it's hammered home time and again in the mainstream media that if you eat meat, you're part of the problem as far as saving the earth is concerned. If you go back to the Agricultural Research Service website and do a search, you're going to find that since October 1st, 2009, a research project entitled Biology and Control of Ticks and Veterinary and Human Importance project has been going on. In this research project, it outlines the different things they're looking at, and one of the things they are looking at is that Lone Star tick and some of the illnesses induced by that tick. On this research project page, under Approach, it says, quote,
This project addresses the biology and control of ticks of veterinary and human importance with an emphasis on developing technologies to help maintain eradication of cattle fever ticks, beef, and the agents that they transmit causing potentially fatal bovine babesiosis, and to reduce the risk of humans contracting tick-borne diseases including Lyme disease and human ehrlichiosis. So I decided to go ahead and look up the symptoms of ehrlichiosis. And apparently it's mild fever, headache, muscle aches, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, cough, joint pain, confusion, and a rash. And what are the symptoms that people are getting from the rare meat allergy tick bite? Well, some of them are getting anaphylaxis, which also causes nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and a rash.
So last week we saw the UN Earth Summit hosted down in Rio, where they talked about Agenda 21, sustainability, and they aimed giant green spotlights at the Christ the Redeemer statue, the largest Christ statue in the world. The green religion, that's these people's religion, the enviro religion. And when they talk about sustainability, what they're really saying is, the earth has too many people, we need to sustain the earth. Okay? Humans are like a blight on the planet to the New World Order. And they want to usher in the one world government through this whole sustainability global warming hoax, even though they have absolutely no data to back any of it up, okay? And so, to me, it's just a little bit too convenient that we have politicians coming forward talking about how they would ban meat. I think Bloomberg had said something about how he would ban it, like he is banning soda drinks. I think it's just a little bit too convenient that there's this plethora of media articles inundating us all the time about how beef is enemy number one of the environment, it causes more CO2 emissions than cars, it causes global warming. I think it's just a little bit too convenient that now we suddenly have this rare tick-borne illness that causes an allergy just to beef only, and it's so bad that when people get it, they don't want to eat beef ever again. I think it's just so convenient that it happens to be proliferating out from the East Coast mostly, which conveniently just so happens to have Plum Island, where DHS and USDA do studies all the time with tick-borne illnesses and have been doing one currently since 2009 on their own website with this specific tick that is causing this allergy. I think it's just so convenient also that there is documentation to prove that Nazi research in biological warfare has gone down at Plum Island through Operation Paperclip on tick-borne illnesses using this same exact tick. I think it's just so convenient, and it gets to a point where it's a little too convenient, okay? It's a little bit too many coincidences.
Well, so there you go. I mean, is it a crazy conspiracy theory to think that the powers that be aren't genetically modifying us like they're genetically modifying everything else to fit their agenda? And then you've got people like Mayor Bloomberg who go on national news programs to tell the American people that he's going to make you understand. He's going to force you to understand that a 16-ounce soda is bad for you. I mean, if we're not buying that beef is causing global warming and that we all have to stop eating meat, maybe they'll just force us to understand.
I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think conspiracy theory or conspiracy fact on this? I know what I think, and I think I'm probably going to go down to a steakhouse now and order one before they're carbon taxed out of existence. But it won't matter anyway because, you know, I'm going to eat a steak and get anaphylactic shock because we're all going to be turned into vegan zombies under some kind of crazy government science experiment like Resident Evil Umbrella Corporation gone wild or whatever this is. This is insane, all right? This is nuts. So go eat a steak while you still can. I'm Melissa Melton. My blog is truestreammedia.com. Talk to you later, guys.